When we think of the collect-a-thon genre, it's always 3D platformers that come to mind, like Super Mario Odyssey. However, these two styles aren't permanently linked, and just like how you can have 3D platformers focused on getting from point A to point B, you can have collect-a-thon games that are outside of that genre. And that's what the debut title from Moonloop Games is all about. Hauntii puts the player into the soul of a young spirit who has awoken in the world of ghosts. They need to recover their lost memories and meet up with a guardian angel who will help them ascend into the next realm. To do this, the player has to explore every corner of the world of ghosts, travelling through forests of giant bells and mushrooms, massive ancient cityscapes, a never-ending carnival and more, solving all kinds of puzzles to get stars. These stars can then be used to form constellations that go on to reveal the ghosts' memories of when they were alive in these cute abstract drawings. When playing through Hauntii, I very quickly realised that, despite the presentation and the way that the story unfolds, its core gameplay loop and structure is very much inspired by titles like Nintendo's Super Mario Odyssey. Each world has a set amount of stars hidden throughout it, and you can find these by helping out locals, taking part in minigames, solving puzzles in the environment, or just finding them out in the open, where the challenge is simply how the player reaches it. And you don't need to get every star to progress. Once you've reformed a specific constellation and progressed the story enough, that opens up the next area to explore. The player definitely wants to get every star they can though, as something Hauntii does that Mario did not is introduce RPG style upgrades to basic stats and abilities. The player has the power to shoot out spirit balls as well as dash, and combat is made up primarily of these two attacks. When the player forms a constellation, they are given the opportunity to either invest into one of those two abilities or increase their health. This way, getting stars doesn't only progress the story, but acts as the primary way the player can grow and get stronger. This is great, it gives the collectibles value beyond hitting the minimum needed to progress to the next level. It's not just the structure of Hauntii that is inspired by Super Mario Odyssey, however. The game's main gimmick is the player's ability to haunt objects, opening up a new range of context-sensitive abilities. Become a tree and shake to drop items, enter a turret for increased firepower when battling enemies, become a ladybug and float from branch to branch, or become this jumpy guy and jump real high. There's an ability for every situation. It's not just stars that players will collect on their journey. The game also has two types of currency, a standard one and a unique one for each level, also like Super Mario Odyssey, both of which can be used to buy stars from shops or, more importantly, hats that the player can wear. The hats can be equipped from the crystal menu, which can be found at every checkpoint. I'm telling you this in the video because the game didn't tell me how to find this menu, and I spent half the game unable to take this leaf off of my head. And not being clear with the player is an unfortunate issue that Hauntii seems to have. I understand from an immersion and storytelling perspective that keeping some factors a mystery from the player is a good thing, but a balance has to be hit, and there were a handful of sections where I wasn't sure if what just happened was the actual intention of the game or some kind of bug. Sometimes though, it's an issue of visibility. The fixed isometric camera offers a new way to experience a collect-a-thon, but this viewport comes with some obvious issues. In some cases, the game does things to avoid this, like having the foreground fade out when the player is behind an object. But unfortunately, other times, issues with perspective can really mess with the player, and it just becomes frustrating. This cowboy minigame is a perfect example of it, as lining up shots in the diagonal directions is unnecessarily annoying. The lack of a laser sight mixed with the perspective will make the player's shots look like they are lined up correctly when they actually aren't at all. Add a timer onto this and slightly stiff rotation, and you have one of the most frustrating minigames in any collect-a-thon. While Hauntii's gameplay is clearly very Odyssey-esque, its visual style and music couldn't be further away. Hauntii excels in its presentation with hand-drawn characters and environments, making use of limited, somber colour palettes and lighting to portray the ghostly world. The light colours are used to show where it's safe to travel, and black indicates the danger zone, where the player will be killed for hanging out there for too long. The game has several moments throughout the adventure where the camera pulls back and shows the player something cinematic, with the soundtrack swelling to a beautiful crescendo that really pulls the player into its world. This is certainly a game that you play with headphones on. So, it's a shame that on a technical level, Hauntii can often fumble. Now, I was told that these issues should only exist in the pre-release version and will be fixed in the final release, but that remains to be seen. If it was something light, like a frame drop, then I wouldn't bother mentioning it, but unfortunately I had all kinds of issues, from collectibles going into the out of bounds sections, to projectiles disappearing, to game crashes. The carnival world in particular was pretty bad for this, and I had all kinds of glitches occur, from the music becoming static to the game slowing down dramatically when the fireworks began. Once, when I tried to form a constellation, my character got replicated in the game randomly. The resulting constellation then caused my game to crash entirely. Judging by some of the notes from developers that I was given, this is only an issue on Switch and PS4, every other version is fine, especially the PC one. But that was still very frustrating, as it felt like I was having to walk on eggshells in areas just to keep the game going. Despite all of this, I do think you should play Hauntii if you can. It's a beautiful Odyssey with an intriguing world and a plot that caused emotions to swell up within me. All of this built on top of one of the best collect-a-thon gameplay loops out there, presented in the form of an isometric adventure. In an era where most indie collect-a-thons call back to the N64 era of gaming, it's nice to play one that's more inspired by its contemporaries in the genre. It's just a shame then that, at least on Nintendo Switch, the game can be quite glitchy. Other than one small section, the frame rate is actually fairly stable, but there are a myriad of other oddities that can pop up from time to time and bring the experience down. You have to be willing to deal with those issues if you want to pick up the game on anything other than the PC. Unless they all get patched out, of course. Hauntii is a game that's got challenging puzzles, a beautiful handcrafted world to explore, and a soundtrack that will keep you enthralled over its entire runtime. As long as you can put up with some frustration now and again, then this is a title worth trying at least once before you die. I want to thank Plan of Attack and Moonloop Games for sending me a copy to review. I hope this does them well. And I really do hope a lot of these glitches and bugs I ran into do get patched out, because they were frustrating. On screen right now are our patrons from the $5 up tier. You can join them by looking in the description below or clicking the Patreon button on screen right now. Let me know your thoughts on Hauntii, if it's a game you'd heard of before, if it's something that you're interested in picking up. I'd love to know in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so that you can always remember to return to the source.